I'm using the Gamblin solvent-free gel. And I'm also using Gamsol as my paint thinner. I'm using some of the paint thinner on the brush to pick up the paint that's already on the canvas. This paint is dried probably from a session done yesterday, so it's about 24 hours old. But I can pick up the paint that's already on the canvas with the brush and my paint thinner. Here I'm going into that background landmass and I'm taking it down a notch. I don't like that it's sitting as prominent as it is. So I'm just blending it in. And again, I'm working on edges here too. I'm just trying to knock those edges down so it continues to exist in the background, but not as prominently as it did. Now I'm going to create a pile of paint that has some sky color in it, and I am just sort of guessing right now. I'm using lemon yellow and I'm using a little bit of cad red light and a lot of white. So I'll just put it up on the canvas, see how it looks in that area, and I'm finding that it's too yellow for the horizon. So right now I'm just going to put it up at the top. I can work with that later, but it's too yellow for what I want. So I'm going back in now and I'm using more of the red. See how that looks? And it looks pretty close. So I'm happy with that, and I'll just continue to work around those trees to make the edges a little more defined and bring those trees perhaps a little bit more forward, and again also working that hill in the background or that landmass in the background. As you can see, that landmass is now much less defined, and it sits back there quite a ways. Now I'm just cutting around the trees. So you might say that I'm working on the drawing here at this point as well. Edges and the drawing. Now since I have some of the sky color on the brush, I'm going to bring it down into the water, since the water is a reflection of the sky. Looking at this protrusion of this little landmass in the middle ground, I think I want to just cut into that a little bit. So I've got quite a bit of paint on the brush, and it allows me to get in there and just make a slight change. I've just changed the angle of that just a bit. Now I'm going to shift to the trees. So I'm using Viridian, some alizarin crimson to give me a very dark color that at the moment I'm going to use for just making some marks. I'm not satisfied with the shape of the tree in terms of its size, so I want to make a larger tree here. I want that tree to be more prominent. I want it to come forward a bit more than it is. So I've indicated that the tree is going to be taller, it's going to be a little wider. And I'll make some marks towards the bottom of the tree, so it's going to bring it forward just a bit more. I'm going to start mixing up some green, some dark green color. As you'll notice, this green is mixing with the white that's in the back. That's why it's coming out very gray like that. So I'm just going to mix more of my green, being the ochre color, the yellow ochre, with, I believe it is the ultramarine blue. That's primarily what I'm using here. And I again have quite a bit of pigment on the brush, as you can see. I'm going to warm it up just a bit with CAD yellow light. And I just want to see what that does, so I'll put it up there. And yeah, that looks better. So that seems to be working for the highlight part of this tree. And already you can see that the tree has become, it's come forward just by virtue of changing its shape, making it larger. And I've also warmed up the highlight part of the tree as well. Now I'm going back to the dark. So I started with the dark, I worked on the highlight, and now I'm coming back to the dark. As I look at the source material, I notice that the edges of this particular tree, as they exist next to the shape of the sky in the background, I notice those edges, they have some dark to them, so I'm thinking about that now as well. And also the ground area, I want to define that a little better. And again, the darks are a good tool to make any object sit down in the landscape. Those are those edges of the tree going against the sky in the background. I want to make those a little darker. Picking up a lot of pigment right there. And I just sort of dab it up there to just kind of see how it lays, how it looks with the other color around it. And I'm not at all concerned about what my brush strokes look like. I'm only concerned about the value and the color of the pigment that I'm putting up there and how they relate with everything else around them. So now I'm knocking down this green tree color that I've been using for the foreground. I want to use it on the tree on the right side, but that has to be an object in the painting that is not as intense as that tree on the left side. Now I'm just blocking in again the highlight section of this tree on the right. The color is still pretty strong, so I think I'm going to end up shifting that over to the blue. There's still a lot of green in there, but I've used more of the ultramarine blue to knock that green down. And that does a good job of setting that tree in back of the one on the left side, which is the foreground. Mixing some color that will be more of a middle value. And I'm now heightening the color just a bit with a lot more pigment. But as you can see, the color is not as intense and not as warm as the color in the tree on the left side. Using a bit of blue here. And that'll do it for that tree for the moment. Now I'm going to switch back to the tree on the left. Here again, I'm mixing some dark with alizarin crimson, phthalo blue, which gives me a very dark mixture. And I'm lightening that up with some cool yellow, my lemon yellow. Even that is a bit too dark. So I'm going to lighten that up further with ochre, yellow ochre. And that looks a little better. Again, I've got a mixture of a lot of paint on my brush. So I'm getting the benefit of some of that dark that I originally mixed, phthalo blue with the alizarin crimson and lemon yellow. But also on other parts of the brush, I have yellow ochre. And so it allows for some interesting effects as you sort of push and pull and twist the brush around. Now there's what happens when you add white to the mixture that I've been using. And that is a little too dull, so I'm using some cool yellow, lemon yellow, to heighten that color up just a bit. So again, notice that I started paying attention to this tree with my darks first. I then went to the highlights and some of the middle value. Now I've got a lot of pigment on that tree and it's bothering me. It's kind of something that could get in my way, so I'm going to remove the pigment with my palette knife. And while I've got my palette knife out, I'm going to take some of the mixture on the palette, put it up there, and just kind of see what happens. It's giving me some darks and some middle values that I kind of like. So I'll take a brush now and see if I can work those back into the painting. Mixing up green again with that mixture of yellow ochre and ultramarine blue, a little bit of cad yellow light to warm it up. And that's creating a very nice effect. I like that. And I think I can work with that. And I'm trying to create a little bit of effect right now with leaves and branches and some of the sky holes that we see in the outer margins of a tree. So I want to get that sky color back. I'm using a separate brush here, by the way. It's not the same brush. I want to be sure that I'm matching that sky color back there. And now I can just drop in a few dabs of color into the margins of the tree to give it that illusion of light coming through the tree. I'll do the same to the other side. And also take a little bit of time to work on just the edges, the drawing, if you will. I want the tree to look like a tree, not to look like a form, a conical form. So that does it for this portion of the video. Thanks for watching, and I hope this has been helpful.